More updates coming in from the Supreme Court. Harish Nair, our legal editor who's inside, is sending us Singhvi reiterates that the courts cannot interfere at this juncture, referring to Article 212 to say that there is a constitutional bar on the courts inquiring into the legislative procedure. And Justice Suryakant saying, are we really dealing with the proceedings of the Assembly? Singhvi says, yes, your lordships are dealing with the questions like notice not given, notice of 2 days not enough. Petitioners are saying at least 7 days time must be given for reply. All this comes within the discretion of the Honorable Deputy Speaker. But viewers, in this case, the Deputy Speaker's position is in question. That's the difference. Nilashish, help us break it down.
Well, absolutely. The question is about the Deputy Speaker's position. Now, Abhishek Manu Singhvi again goes on to say that the questions that are being dealt with are of internal proceedings, about procedures, and it goes on to he also goes on to again refer to the Kyoto Holohan case in this particular situation, and says that even after a final order is given, even in that stage, the scrutiny of this court is limited. So he continues to say that there is only an extent up to which the court can go into as far as internal proceedings are concerned, as far as the Legislative Assembly is concerned. In fact, now what has happened is that Abhishek Manu Singhvi has gone offline because this is a virtual hearing. Devdutt Kamath, of course, has taken over the proceedings, and he is again buttressing this argument of Abhishek Manu Singhvi that the court's jurisdiction remains limited as far as such cases are concerned, as far as procedures of the legislature are concerned, and the Kyoto Holohan judgment is being cited in light of the arguments that have been presented already. So again, the attempt clearly is to keep it out of the courts to ensure that as the situation is in the Maharashtra Assembly right now, the situation is forwarded, the matters are forwarded.
Okay, more arguments coming in. We also have a big breaking news. First response from the Shinde camp. While the court arguments are underway, we will have Poonam Bude transcribe that 3-page letter in just a bit. But here's the latest from the courtroom. Justice Khan says, remember, Mr. Singhvi, now we are confronted with a situation where the very continuation of the Deputy Speaker is under challenge. Something that we've been talking about, Nilashish, has been said in as many words by Justice Kant. Because Mr. Singhvi says that what the court is doing is interfering with the powers of the Speaker or the Deputy Speaker, what have you. Justice Khan says, remember, Mr. Singhvi, now we are confronted with a situation where the very continuation of the Deputy Speaker is under challenge, because the Shinde camp has made it very clear that the Deputy Speaker's action is illegal, unconstitutional. Nilashish.
Well, absolutely. The Supreme Court is saying that the situation is that the continuation of the Deputy Speaker in that position, in that chair in itself is under question. Now, how would it seem if he were to go on and continue with the proceedings as has been issued for by him at a time when there was a no confidence motion that was initiated against him? Now, of course, this is in response to Abhishek Manu Singhvi stating that the court only can interfere up to a limited extent, and the proceedings of the legislature cannot be interfered upon. But again, the question that the Supreme Court is asking themselves, the issue basically that needs to be answered at this point through these court proceedings, is whether they are really dealing with the proceedings of the Assembly, or whether it is the position here when it is under challenge, the position, of course, of Deputy Speaker, when that is under challenge.
Right, and this is something that we've been discussing, Rahul. Abhishek Manu Singhvi telling the court that let's not interfere, let the Speaker, Deputy Speaker decide. The judge now saying the Deputy Speaker's position is untenable. That's the charge from the other side.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is down to now precedent versus precedent. So let's park that aside for a few moments. We're also getting news, of course, that the Shinde camp has put out a particular circular, a letter, where they are justifying their actions. So clearly there's a lot also happening outside of the court. And a quick update from that arena, which is the contested arena of claim versus claim rather than precedent versus precedent, which is the court arena. We have news now that the Shinde camp has put out a letter where they have said in one line that we will not stop, we will not bend,
and we will continue to work to make Maharashtra even more prosperous. Jai Maharashtra. This is signed by Deepak Kesarkar, former minister, and now somebody who's part of the Shinde camp.
Yeah, Deepak Kesarkar, one has to say, is quite inconsistent. He sort of tells you one thing on television, does quite the opposite within minutes of talking to you. So obviously he's gone on record to put out the reasons why they're doing this, and obviously claiming higher cause, etc., etc. But that is a sideshow that has been continuing. Let's go back to the court and let's find out what more has come on to this. Now, Justice Kant, who is having an exchange with Abhishek Manu Singhvi, who is a lawyer for the Uddhav camp, comes out and says, how can the deputy speaker decide notice against himself? That is, when there is a no confidence motion against you, how can you sit in your own judgment? Now that's on the face of it. Yeah, can you be a judge in your own cause? Would that not invite conflict of interest? So that, of course, is the other point that needs to be considered. Complicated issue, viewers. While judgments can be cited as precedent, past judgments can be cited as precedent, the situations that were applicable in those cases might be different from the situation here. If Dr. Singhvi can prove that there is a similarity between the situation that persisted earlier, that is in the earlier matters, and there is a similarity with the situation as it's emerging now, then obviously those judgments will come into play. But if he can't, there'll be a problem. Justice Kant also says, can the speaker to whom notice has been served for his removal, can he himself decide on the notice? My brother has a question. Justice then Pardiwala also comes in and he says, you have now been called upon to make us understand as to why the principle in Rabia should not be made applicable. So, direct question now to Dr. Singhvi. Why should we set aside the Nabam Rabia precedent that is being cited by Neeraj Kishan Kaul, the lawyer representing the Shinde camp? So it is all coming down to precedents. If the Nabam Rabia precedent is upheld, the deputy speaker's decision will be ab initio void, i.e. he will not be able to disqualify the rebel MLAs, and that will be a massive victory in this Game of Thrones to the Shinde camp, setting the road for a floor test, a numbers test, which at this moment favors the Shinde camp. And one can also expect the BJP then to step in and support the Shinde camp, and therefore you will have more than 150 odd MLAs, which is what you require. Really, 145, I think, is a halfway mark in the House. So they will be well above the halfway mark. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, viewers. The basic point is, can Abhishek Manu Singhvi create enough doubt in the bench's mind that the Nabam Rabia judgment, the precedent that is being cited by the Shinde camp, should be set aside? If he can do that, it will be problematic, as I told you, for the Shinde camp. So the next 10-12 minutes are going to be extremely important. Remember, also in the backdrop, I want to bring in Poonam. Poonam, in the backdrop, forget about what has been happening, the letters, etc. by Mr. Kesarkar. We all know that he is somebody who is a bit slippery, but it's his justification. But the fact of the matter is that there is also ED now that is jumping into this. The ED now opening a front against Sanjay Rawat, the very vocal strategist of Uddhav Thackeray.
Absolutely, there is ED